retirement, Barb has been very, very busy. She became very active in volunteering and supporting a number of not-for-profit agencies, lending her knowledge, energy, and financial support, serving as a member of the board of directors at Heritage Centers and Heritage Christian Service. She also joined the family committee at Donnie, where she is a great advocate, collaborates with family members, and developed a campaign called Still Waiting. There, she has helped to lead a statewide effort to spotlight the unmet needs of hundreds of families across New York State who are caring for loved ones with developmental disabilities. She coined the phrase, caregiving will not live forever, to help address the wait list for a home and the recognition that people with disabilities deserve quality of life and not simply a bed in a group home. She has been instrumental in many advocacy campaigns. Barb has also been one of those individuals who has worn many, many hats. Probably the ones that she is most proudest of are being a mother and an advocate. She has 2 lovely daughters. Her daughter Laura was born with complex developmental disabilities. Barb added to her plate the role of teacher, trainer, educational coordinator, medication manager, nurse, diagnostician, cheerleader, and advocate. These are a few of the hats that she wears proudly with great enthusiasm, energy, and credibility. She spends time with families, talking with them about some of the challenges that she faced with her daughter Laura when she was growing up. In addition to her work as a volunteer, advocate, and mentor, she also cares for her 92-year-old father and is a lay minister at Harris Hill United Methodist Church. So join me in welcoming somebody with lots of energy.
So anyway, I didn't write that, so now I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I do all that. But just from a kind of logistics standpoint, let's keep this real informal. Interrupt me when you want to ask a question. I don't want it to be boring. 1 o'clock on the agenda is pretty tough, because why? You've eaten, you're full. If you fall asleep, I will be around to bop you on the head. Right? So beware. Now the other thing is, if you think I'm boring, you can come up and take this and bop me on the head. Agreed? We'll leave the purple one on the floor, and we'll put my orange one up here. Maybe. So, a little bit about me. Can you hear me? Okay. So I don't need to stand here, because I have very difficult time standing on place. So, a little bit about my background, though. She shared that I was in corporate America, yep, blah, blah, blah. So I was able to retire at a young age so that I could do this full-time volunteer. I don't work for any agency. I don't work for Donnie. I work for families and individuals, because that's my passion. And because I saw that there was a huge issue in the environment that wasn't being handled. Not because the agencies aren't doing a great job, because they are. And are we blessed that we have agencies like we have? Yay! Say hooray! Hooray! Before you leave here today, you will know how to yell hooray with enthusiasm. But because the legislators and the governor in particular needs to know that the families and the individuals need services. And we have a louder voice than our agencies do. Our agencies have done everything they possibly can do. And the buck stops here. The families need to get involved. Now, before I go further, I need to understand who's in the audience. So do I have any family members or any self-advocates? Okay, great. So I need to talk with you guys later, because you're my family. So, and then we have lots of agency professionals, various roles, MSCs, direct support professionals, agency executives, blah, blah, blah. Is that right? Okay. Any state employees? Okay. And who do you work for?
Well, I work for the state, but not
in this field.
Not in this field.
I just need to make sure, so when I say bad things, it won't.
That's okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So anyways, my daughter's 24 years old, Laura. She's beautiful. She's incredible. She is total care. And when Laura was born, ironically, I was in Albany at a wedding. She was 5 weeks premature, decided to come early, and they had told me she was going to die within a week, and then she was going to die within a month, and then within a year. They diagnosed her with all sorts of awful stuff. Told us she would never swallow, sit, walk, talk, or amount to anything, and that we should put her in an institution. And so my husband and I decided we were going to do differently, and we were going to bring her home. After 8 weeks of great quality care, they flew her into Children's Hospital. We brought her home, and you know, she has done so many of the things that they said she never would do. She walked when she was 12 years old. On Easter Sunday at church was her first steps. And it was because of professionals like all of you that happened. The intervention, the services that we receive, and face it, New York State, you know, we are blessed. We get great services from New York State. And so she did, you know, we decided early on we're going to listen to Laura. Now, it took us 2 years to teach Laura how to swallow. She does have a swallowing disorder. She does have a feeding tube to augment her nutrition because she tires. She loves sweets, you know, like her mom. She likes men, like her mom. No, just kidding. It's true though, but anyway. But you know, it was perseverance, and it was getting the right people on the team to help us, and listening to the experts and having the experts listening to us, right? So it was because of that, 2 years, Q-tip milk, we taught her how to swallow. She still has to have pureed solids and thickened liquids, but she enjoys all the food that we all enjoy, right? And she has her dislikes and likes. She's nonverbal. We're not quite sure what she understands, but we do know she understands love and joy. And we do know that she teaches more to people than they'll ever teach her about resilience and perseverance. She's got a great attitude, and she is, you know, one of the loves of my life, quite frankly. It keeps me going. I was telling Patrick at lunch, I can't imagine waking up in the morning and not greeting her for the day, because that's what keeps me motivated, it keeps me going. So that's a little bit about Laura. And when I retired, I got involved in family advocacy. And so that's how I came to get involved with Donnie. Now, how many of you are familiar with the term Donnie? So if you're not, Developmental Disability Alliance of Western New York, we are truly blessed in the Western New York and Finger Lakes area, because our agencies that could be competitors actually decided to work in collaboration, and we're very, very thrilled with that. So there's about 50 agencies right now that are a member of Donnie, and there's a little sub-team, not little, it's big now, but it's called the Family Committee. Hooray! That's me. I am one of the co-chairs, Kathy Bunsey is the other. And so what we do is our job is about keeping families and individuals informed about what's going on. So that's our little logo, it's a little house. We started our advocacy when, you know, there's this panic, there's no residential opportunities being built. Back in 2008, you know, they closed the door to that, and so that was initially, oh, I forgot already how to do that thing. Hold on. So, down button. Ta-da! I did it. So here's our mission and vision. I have free gifts for all of you today. Ta-da! The brochure, and the brochure gives in it all the information about our mission and vision, what we're about, some statistics about what the landscape is like in terms of residential, employment, day opportunities, MSC services, and it also has our contact information on how you can connect with us. One of my missions today is to promote advocacy and for family members to get more involved, for individuals to get more involved, and for our agencies that are here to help us connect with families. Because of HIPAA and everything else, we can't find the families. So you need to find the families for us and just let them know about us. And then we can help and really spend a lot of time mentoring several groups across the state in terms of their family advocacy. So that's our mission and vision. I won't bore you with that at this point in time. This is going to be a problem, I'm just saying. Okay, so down. Okay, a little bit about what we've done as a Donnie Family Committee. And this is our accomplishment. So we have very strong relationships with our legislators. We have spent several years now educating them about the facts. And so when you go to their office, they know the stuff. They can sit up at the budget hearings in Albany. If you're ever up at 3 in the morning like me, I watch those things, okay? And I can see how those legislators are communicating with the commissioner of OPWDD and other people, asking them questions. They're informed, they're educated, they understand it. Why is that? Well, number one, the agencies have done a great job educating them. Number two, our families have done a phenomenal job going to their legislator's office and telling their story. Because at the end of the day, we can equate them with all the facts in the world on our white position papers, which we do. But the family stories are what they remember. They know Laura. They all know Laura. I wheel her right into their offices, right? And introduce them to Laura. That's what they remember. So, and that's what will carry them and give them the motivation to try to make some changes for the individuals and families with disabilities. So lots of time in Albany. I spend lots of time in Albany as well as other family members. But you don't need to go to Albany to advocate. Now, you've got legislators here locally, like Senator thank you, Kathy Young, she's great! You guys are very fortunate. So she's also the chairperson of the Senate for Finance. And you know what? You guys should be lining up at her office, spending lots of her time educating her on some of the stuff that's going on. She is very informed. Johnny spends a lot of time with her, but again, she needs to hear from families. Every year we have a breakfast. The Family Committee puts it on. We draw about 200 people, families and legislators. We have a panel. 5 families tell their stories. The legislators, we have them all lined up listening. And because again, we're planting seeds before they go into budget season. We've done lots of letter writing campaigns to the governor, and I have templates. I have templates that I'd like you to take today to make it simpler for you. Because sometimes families are like, well, what do I do? What do I write? These are templates, and it'll give them questions that they can answer and they can put in their own words. But very important to keep those letters coming. We have, we've done a rally in Albany, and I'll show you pictures of that in a minute. We've done 4 postcard campaigns in the last 2 years. And the reason we do that is that we just like to flood the Capitol. We like to flood the governor's office, the mailroom, with all these postcards from families and individuals with developmental disabilities that need to retain services. We've spent a lot of time getting media attention. So we've spent a lot of time with Channel 2, 4, and 7 and the cable network, a lot of time with the Buffalo News, a lot of time educating our families on writing letters to the editor, blah, blah, blah. It's real important. We need to make this a community issue. And when you look at the population and you look at the stats, we're just a nit, right? And our community doesn't even know about it. You know, I've been going to the same doctor for a lot of years, and I just had to recently change in the last 3 years because Laura aged out. You know, when you leave the high school, when you leave state education, all entitlement is off, right? It's a different world. So I meet a new doctor for Laura, and we're chatting, and he says to me, so when is Laura moving into a group home? And I said, really? Did you know that there's 12,000 people waiting for options? No. So even people in the medical field have no clue. And that's not a choice I'm making now, but he, as a professional, didn't understand that that was the situation. So we need to make it a community issue. We have lots of position papers. I have one here today, too, another free gift, and it talks about the budget. So it's a family-friendly version of what the aspects of the budget end up to be, so that we, us family members, can understand it and it doesn't get too legally and too legal-eyed, because we wrote it, like Coach. And we need to increase our voice by creating a statewide advocacy group, which we've recently done. It's called SWAN, Statewide Advocacy Network. Please don't comment on the name. It took us 4 months to name it. Collaboration is hard. We have 2 groups from New York City and a group from Albany, and it took us 4 months to agree. So there's Western New York and the Finger Lakes, New York City and Albany, and we're working closely together and to increase our voice at the Capitol. It makes sense. So keeping our families informed and engaged is critical. If they're not informed, they don't know what to advocate about. At every one of our monthly meetings, we kick the meeting off by saying, we're volunteers, we cannot solve your problems, right? But we can educate you and get you informed to help you figure out how you can solve your problems. So it's really important role and clarity for us. Here's just a little picture. It's very cute. So we were able to, statewide, and we did this last year, we were able to get about 450 people, they say, to be on the street, the stairs of the Capitol, to talk about the still waiting that's going on for not just residential, but for services, because it absolutely is critical that we create that awareness. So we were united with the purpose. Okay, a little bit of the landscape of what's happening right now in the state. This may be a review for some of you, but oh well, right? So continues to be a state of transition, right? The home and community-based waiver, that's that acronym up there, is promoting the transformation of services to align with the ADA, which is a good thing, right? They want access to all, which is a good thing. It's outcome-based, which is a good thing, right? It's all good things. And if New York State doesn't comply, they will lose their funding, which is a bad thing. So a lot of what's happening right now is really about funding, because the federal government needs them to meet these specific goals and criteria. Voluntary providers are feeling the impact of rate rationalization. Is that familiar to everybody here? Rate rationalization? Okay. So they've changed the rates. CMS drove that, changed the rates to our providers. The family's position is that lack of appropriate rates violate our civil rights for services, because the less and less the agencies are paid to provide our services, the less and less available our services become. So it's very critical. Now, when our families come to our meetings, do we spend a lot of time on rate rationalization and the term? No, we're very family friendly. The core team that we have are very educated and informed, but we're very careful that we don't overwhelm our families with too much detail or too many special terms, right? We give them information to work with, and then they have questions, they ask us, but we're very careful. Now, in February of 2016, which is this past February, the legislators required of OPWDD, right? Everybody's good with that term, right? Several reports. Now, one of the reasons they did that was because the legislators insisted. So again, a benefit of advocacy is we're informing our legislators, this is what's happening to our families, they're hearing our stories, they're hearing from our agencies. The legislators are asking the leadership of OPWDD and the Department of Health what's going on. And so they said, we want some reports. One was a transformation panel report, which we'll get into. One is a residential request survey, which we'll get into. And the work settings report, which is about closing the sheltered workshops by 2020. And I have instructions in the presentation on how you need to get access to these reports. If you haven't already read them, you need to. And how to get on their listserv so that you get updated information. It's very important to be informed. So, our position is we're still waiting. There's fewer and fewer options, and we need action. And we've been using our still waiting campaign now 4 years in a row, because why? We're still waiting, right? So, the need for safe and appropriate housing is growing rather than shrinking. There are some steps being taken to increase that. We haven't seen it yet. Families are caring for individuals that are medically frail or have severe behavior challenges, and they are feeling hopeless. And I talk to a lot of these families. And when I have to be honest, when I first got into advocacy, now I was always involved in it because my daughter was going through the school system and I was always in their face, right? She never had to worry about anything because she was getting everything she needed. But not everybody's as obnoxious as me. Do you believe that? Right? That is the truth. And so, along the way, I'd help families if they heard about me, and I'd talk with them about doing that. But I never realized, until Laura was starting to transition, how scary it is for families when they get out of that. The state education department, who does a phenomenal job giving all the services that are needed. Sometimes you have to advocate a little bit, you end up getting what you need. Then you go into adulthood and you hit the wall. There's like almost nothing unless you really are escalating and you're all over it. So bad news. I initially got involved in it, this kind of advocacy, because I needed to plan a future for Laura. It was all about Laura. I very quickly realized it's not all about Laura. In fact, we're doing just fine. But there are so many families out there that are not. And that's who it's about. It's about the families that don't have the voice, that are trapped in their houses, that don't have the energy because they're worn out from taking care of their loved one and they don't have the help. And so really, we need to increase our voice to help all the families out there, because it's not just about your family or my family, it's about all the families. And we talk about crisis management. That's the current process right now that's going on. Anybody familiar with the Certified Residential Options Protocol? Raise your hand. Okay, so you're not. So I'll educate you real quick. And that is, for a certified setting, which is the typical group home model, right, with 24/7 services, there is a protocol that's followed, and you have to be classified as a priority 1, 2, or 3. Priority 1, you're homeless, you know, your family member dropped you off at the shelter, or the court said you need a placement, right? Or you're coming out of a institutional setting. You guys can correct me if I'm saying any of this wrong, because I'm summarizing quickly. Priority 2 is you're at risk, your loved one's at risk of hurting themselves or others, right? And there might be an aging caregiver issue. It doesn't talk about the caregiver that's getting battered, because that happens out there. That's the reality of it is. You know, it's to no fault of their own. They love their kid, they want to take care of their kid, but they need services. And, but that's the strategy right now, crisis management. If you're in a crisis, you might get an opportunity. Where's the choice? We talk about person-centered. Where's the choice? It's not acceptable to just get a bed somewhere 2.5 hours away where your family hasn't been involved in the decision of the placement, or whether the people that you are about to move into have a say as to who's coming in. That is not person-centered. So we do not believe that's an acceptable housing strategy. And that's the current scenario. Again, hopefully there's work going on about that. Day opportunities, everyone knows probably that the sheltered work settings have to be integrated, driven by the federal government, all the right reasons, but there needs to be options. So we always say when you're transforming something, you have to have something to transform to. You can't just say we're going to transform, right? Am I bothering you with the camera? Okay, good. So, you know, I always wanted to be a rock star singer. You know, I might treat you with a song later, with Steve. So anyway, we know that there's more than 8,000 people in sheltered work when they came through and said no more options, no more opportunities after July 1st, 2013. But we also know, you know, there's supported employment, there's pre-vote, there's all those other programs that aren't even in there that quite frankly aren't being supported like they need to be from a funded perspective. So we have other individuals that aren't being provided a full week. That's not acceptable. That's not person-centered. And so we talk about that a little bit, that people need to be safe, they need to be nurtured, they need to be happy. It's their civil right. It's their civil right. Now, transformation panel. Anybody hear about the transformation panel? Okay, so if you haven't, I'll tell you about that too. Aren't you glad you're here? Oh my gosh. Okay, so last January 2015, the commissioner, Carrie Delaney, created a transformation panel, a group of experts, to be able to, for her to receive feedback on some of the situations that were going on and how we were going to be able to deliver services in the future, as well as managed care. So she had 18 or 19, and Steve Holmes in the back is also on the transformation panel. Yay for Steve! And at that point in time, yay! When I saw that posted on their website, I wrote her a letter. And I said, you need to have a mom or dad sitting at the table, and they need to not be an employee of an agency. In other words, they need to not be getting a paycheck so they can say things that no one else says. Is that right, Steve?
Yes.
Do I say things no one else says?
You are one of the loudest people.
Surprise!
And we love it.
Because it's important, right? People can sit around a table and they can think they know, but unless they're living the life, they don't know.
She was very quiet at first. No.
That's true, that's true. So, you know, I continue to remind them that they're there because of our families. Right? And I believe that Commissioner Delaney, she is genuine, she is good, and she really wants to make a difference. I believe she really cares. I believe several of the people on her staff care, and I've been blessed by the people on the panel, people like Steve and other agency professionals that I've met that are in the game for the right reasons, right? The question is, do we have the authority to make the change needed? Or does the authority sit with the governor? That's my concern. And I tell Carrie Delaney that all the time. So, transformation panel was formed. We met several times last year in Albany with lots of work in front of us in terms of what needs to change to have something to transform to. And there's 61 recommendations. If you haven't read the report, you know, go onto the website, which I'll show you how to go to. Go all the way to the back. The last 3 pages are all the recommendations. That's really the meat. It's a 28-page report. Go to the back, read the recommendations. One of the recommendations is, guess what? Individuals should be able to choose multiple options for a full 5-day week. Because what we hear is that's not happening. Some people get 8 hours a week, some get 4 hours a week, some get 14, right? They need to have a full life. They need to not be, I'll tell you what, sitting at home in your family home or in your supported apartment is as institutional as you get if you're not out with people that you want to be out with, right? Engaging. So that is a huge recommendation, and it'll be very interesting to see how that is funded so that people can have that opportunity. Transitioning from high school is not what it used to be. I just put that there because it used to be, you know, for those of you that were in the zone then, it was just typical that a person aging out would get services, and they'd get a full week's services. That is not the case any longer. this up here because this is, let me just preface, this is World According to Barb, I call it. That's neat, Barb. So, anybody here able to go to the transformation panel listening sessions that were done across the state? Okay, so I'll tell you about them. So there was several of them. Commissioner Delaney and some of her staff and several of the transformation panel members went to several of them across the state. We had one in Buffalo, one in Rochester, one in Syracuse, one in Albany, one in New York, a couple in New York City. Anyway, I went to the ones on the side of the state. And people had the opportunity, while the commissioner was sitting there, to tell their story and to indicate what their issues and concerns were. It was very good. And then also they had to submit that in writing. And if you couldn't be at the meeting, then you could submit your concerns and issues in writing or suggestions, right? So I asked, and I read every one of them. Every one of them. There was only 115. Kind of crappy, to be honest with you. When you think about the fact that OPWD serves 130,000 individuals statewide, Region 1 supports 26,000, give or take 500, 26,000 individuals, and we had 115 written testimonies. So what's wrong with that picture? Either families don't know to get there, or they're worn out. One way or another, we need to find a way to get the information into their laps so they can do something. So when I read them, I said, you know, the facts are the facts, but I wanted to capture the tone. So I read every testimony 3 times. Had this very sophisticated spreadsheet because I like to do that stuff. And I captured the tone of every one of the stories into hopeful, angry, concerned, desperate, frustrated. Difference between angry and concerned is angry is concerned with an edge. That was my operational definition. And so that's the tone. So that less than 10% of the people that shared had hopeful outlooks. And that is sad to me. Now, those were providers, they were self-advocates, and they were family members. Now, granted, typically people will skew themselves to the negative. I mean, that's just human nature. You say about the bad things, you don't get up there and say about the great things. So we have to keep that in mind. But generally speaking, people are feeling real anxious, and several are desperate, right? And then I took the topics that were discussed: residential self-direction, employment, sheltered work program, regulation, and DSPs. Went across and toned them out. And of course, you could see that the most specific, the most concerned need was residential. Why is that? It's because we as family members aren't going to live forever. And that's real scary, right? So you lay awake at night wondering, what happens if I wake up dead? That's what I do. I wonder what's going to happen if I wake up dead. And I say that kind of like in jest, but it's true. So very concerned, and families are very concerned. And there needs to be a plan, and it needs to be a civil plan. It needs to be one in which you can walk hand in hand with your loved one so that they don't think you abandoned them. And individuals with developmental disabilities have varying levels of need and various level of awareness. My daughter, she will absolutely not understand. She will think I abandoned her if something happened to me suddenly. She won't understand it. So, next report that the legislators requested was a residential request list. People familiar with that? Yes? No? Little engagement from the audience. Okay. Yes. So what happened was, because the families were bugging the legislators so significantly about this huge waiting list that we thought was about 12,000 based on a FOIL, Freedom of Information Act, that we had got from the state, there was 12,000. We're bugging them. So they said, we need to really have an understanding of how many people are on the list. So OPW, they gave them $1 million to do this study, and they made all these phone calls, and they had 5,000 respondents of the phone survey. They sent a letter, and they asked them several questions about their residential need. Okay, that's cool. The good news is that they didn't stop at just the 5,000. They knew that there was a whole lot, many more thousands that they couldn't find. They knew that on the New York CARES list, which was the old list, that there was several thousand more. So they took the 11,340 off the New York CARES list as well and considered that. So that's good. What did the report tell you? And I will share with you some specific stats that I pulled from the report, but just in summary, 62% of those surveyed, so 62% of the 5,000 that answered the phone prefer a traditional agency staffed residence. Why? Because A, they don't know any different, B, they're scared, right? Lots of different reasons. So we need to inform them about the options. More than 1,700 individuals are projected to be that priority one. Is that acceptable? Are you kidding me? You know you're going to have 1,700 priority ones? It's okay to be in crisis? That is not acceptable. Absolutely not. And 46% of the caregivers that were on the call report to be over the age of 60. Now, that's an interesting stat in New York State because the Coleman Institute does analysis every year for every state. And the Coleman Institute, which is the stats we've always used as Family Committee, report there's 396,000 individuals in New York State with developmental disabilities. Now, only 130,000 are receiving services, so there's a lot more that either the families are choosing not to, or they don't know, or their disability is not significant enough, whatever. But of that 396,000, 195,000 individuals live at home with family caregivers. 195,000. And in theirs, they say only 25% are over 60. Those phone calls revealed almost 50% being over 60. That's kind of scary, right? Because as you get older, and I'm getting there, right? My husband is going to be 70. I know I'm very young. He robbed the cradle. But I'm just saying, you know, there comes a point in which you can't physically continue to do it. But you want it to be a transition approach, right? So, real insightful information came out of that report. You just have to look through it. So I'm going to show you how to find that because I know you're all going to rush home tonight and get on the listserv and read that report and then send me an email and say, oh my gosh, it was so interesting. Okay, so, wrong way. Okay, so a little bit about the residential request survey. So what I did was I went into that and they were giving statewide stats. So what I decided to do is, as I was preparing for my trip for advocacy, of course legislators want to hear about my constituents, right? They want to hear how is this affecting my constituents. So this is what this is. So by region, I want to give you the whole picture. That's the $11,340, or $340, $11,340 by OPWDD regions, right, which are geographically located. Of Region 1, we're Region 1, right? Western New York and Finger Lakes. Here we go. 2,139 citizens waiting for a residential option. You know what? That's not acceptable. And that means when they get in crisis, they might get a place in 4, 6, 8, 10 months, right? Or maybe the family can't do it anymore and they drop them off at the hospital, which I hear is happening. Or they send them to program and they say to the program, not picking them up today, can't do it. That is so uncivilized. And it's not acceptable that we put family members in that position to abandon the person they love. Not acceptable. So here's the age demographics. And there's 1,091, that's the biggest picture, if you can't see that in the back of the rooms, that are between 23 and 29, right? There's 463 people in our communities that are over 40 that need a residential option or a plan for one, right? Next one, familiar with ISPM scores? Okay, so I had this little chart down here because our legislators aren't that familiar with ISPM scores, right? Individual, what does it stand for? Individual service, what does it stand for? Testing the audience. ISPM, individual service support, never mind, it's okay. So, but the bottom line is here's direct support, so what is their need from a direct support professional? Low, medium, high, and then here, are you guys deciding back there? Because you'll get a prize. I have a brownie over here. And then their behavior, low and high. And so right here we have, for instance, ISPM 3. Means they may have medium direct support needs, right? And low behavior needs. So it's a great little chart to show that up here by ISPM, because it was in the residential report. It was information that was given to us, which is great because we need information. There's 531 people that we know that are in ISPM scores that will never be able to live independently, right? We know that an ISBM score of 751, you know what, it's very, very likely that those individuals will absolutely be able to have very prosperous lives, living independently or semi-independently in the community, having a great time. That's wonderful. There should be a plan for them too, right? It's not all about the people that need 24/7. There needs to be a plan for every one of these. There needs to be options, and they need to be known. And this 826, you know, that's kind of somewhere in between, you know, so you don't know. And again, people can say what they want about ISBM. It's not a true reflection of need, blah, blah, blah. It's all we got right now. And until the CAS, Coordinated Assessment Program, comes out, that's all we got. So that's what we have to work with, right? The important news is, as a family member, if you don't agree with that ISBM score, and if you don't have your loved one's DDP-2, please make sure you get a copy immediately. Make sure that it's accurate. That is the instrument that's used to fund the services for your loved one. You must have it. And so that just gives a picture of the number of people that are really going to need support to live in the community as they deserve to, right? Oh, wrong way. Okay, self-direction. New model. You guys have all heard of that, right? Yes? Yes, Miss Teacher. I also wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. Just kidding. Couldn't do it. I don't have patience, but it's a new model, again, driven by the federal government for all the right reasons, right? People should have a say in their future, right? But it's a philosophy. It's not a model. It's not how services, it's a philosophy on how services should be delivered. And it's a good philosophy if they could simplify it a little bit, right? A person-centered plan is developed. Now, I had the opportunity to sit down at the panel this morning, and I'll tell you what, it was fabulous. And the individuals that shared and the family members that shared, wonderful stories, wonderful success stories, right, of how it can work. So we need to get those kind of stories out there as well to show people it can work, right? But one size does not fit all. That's the bottom line. One size does not fit all. And nobody should be forced to do anything that they don't want to do, right? So, the individual or family member purchases their supports, just a little bit of self-direction for those of you that might not completely understand it. And it's based on your PRA, personal resource allocation, which is based on your ISPM. This is how much money your budget will have, and you need to figure out how you're going to spend that, and so on and so forth. We could spend a whole day on it. I'm not an expert on it. I'm sure several people in this room are. There you go. What's your name?
Individual services planning model.
Do you want the brownie?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Individual services planning model. So the budget is based on the need, which the ISPM is supposed to say, and the CAS will someday. And then there's various venues you can use self-direction for. You can self-direct some, but not all. You can still have traditional services. You can have a blend, whatever. The whole intent, right, for self-determination is intended on promoting choice. That's what it should be about. And I emphasize, choice, person-centered, one size doesn't fit all. Now, the transformation panel. Now, again, there's 61 recommendations, but I'm not going to take you through them all today, but I will say that it was very clear and very well articulated and understood that until they make some significant changes in self-direction to simplify it and to fund it appropriately, we cannot make the strides we need to make that approach successful. It's too complicated for families. I met a family when I was up there a few weeks ago for a work session on the CAS, and the dad told me his wife spends 25 hours a week managing the self-direction plan for their son. She's not the broker. She just spends that kind of time. It can't happen because not all parents are like the parents in this room, or are like me, or like, what's the guy I met downstairs that I love so much? Tim. Right? We're the exception. And so they have to make an approach that's family-friendly, that's easily understood, and that people are available to help the families. And, by the way, that there's staff available to hire, because there's none of that either. So big-time work going to be done, they say, to simplify the approach so that it can benefit more people. Because otherwise it won't happen if it's as complicated and convoluted. Here's a 79-page book, read it and get into self-direction. not acceptable. I was going to say, next slide, please. I should give you this. I'm not really good with typing stuff. See, what's wrong with it? Okay, so a little bit, the transformation panel categorized into work streams. There they are: residential support, care management, employment and life in the community, flexibility and responsiveness, funding and performance, self-determination, supporting family, supporting staff. All very good recommendations, but until there's a detailed work plan on every single recommendation, it means nothing. They're working on the work plans. The transformation panel has stayed together. We're going to be provided with some details on each individual work plan, and we will have the opportunity to engage with our thoughts, and they're telling us that stakeholders will also have the opportunity to provide feedback, and we will make sure that happens. Right, Steve? Right. Okay. So, but we need to hold OPWDD.
You got it right.
Right. We need to hold OPWDD accountable. It can't just be a report that they put in their filing drawer and shut it and say, we did it. Legislators told us to do it. We did it. Done. No way. Right? So we have to stay on top of them. That means we need to know what the recommendations are. We have to understand what the work plans are. We have to challenge them if they don't make sense. And if they're not making the target dates, we need to say, hey, wait. And I will be doing that, but I need other family members to do it too. Okay? So they're working on the details, right? Program management and governance structures formed. That's all good. So at least they have a methodology and a plan, and they've hired KPMG as a consultant to do it. But you can stay informed by, if you're not already on OPWDD's listserv, you need to be. And I will show you how to do that. And we need to hold them accountable. I met a woman, and I'm trying to remember her name because she was at the NYSACRA convention, and she was receiving an award from them on her commitment to employment. Steve, do you know her name?
I missed that.
Celine, was it Celine?
Helene Santo.
No, sorry, not her. The woman that was received an award at the NYSACRA conference for her commitment to individuals in the employment. Anyway, delightful. She got up at the podium and she talked about the fact that her job was a civil servant. Her role in life was to serve individuals with developmental disabilities. That's the attitude they need to have. She was great. I ran up, hugged her, thought she was great. Right? Can't remember her name. Don't tell it. So, but I'll remember it later when I'm driving home. Anyway, that's the attitude. They're there, right, to serve those people that have developmental disabilities. So we have to remind them of that all the time. Wrong. Okay, so what should you advocate for? How do you advocate? Ready? What time is it? Pardon me?
42.
All right, so here's what we're advocating right now. Now, as you form family groups, and I'm going to be encouraging you to try to do that, you guys can decide if there's different advocacy situations. But right now, when we go across the state and we're talking to other family groups, advocate for change, residential. We need a long-term, right, a transition plan for long-term care. Now, good news, transformation report says there's going to be a 5-year plan for housing. That's fabulous. They've never had that. Let's see what the content is, and we'll see if it's acceptable. But that was very encouraging to me, right? If we have a transitioned approach to our loved ones moving out of their family home, then we can be involved in the training. Oh, hallelujah! Does that make sense? Absolutely. No one knows their loved one better than the family. And no one is more invested in their life and their future than us. So individuals that have their needs met, for those that can't express them, individuals would understand the change, and caregivers would have a backup for emergencies. Transition should be planned and person-centered. If they're not planned, it's not person-centered. There's no choice. And they shouldn't be crisis-driven. And right now, that's what's happening, crisis-driven. We believe that active transition planning should occur starting at the age of 16. Just like you start to plan your loved ones going to college, right? Takes a lot of planning, a lot of thought, right? A lot of research. Doesn't mean it needs to happen, but needs to be planned. And earlier if needed, because there's individuals that do need a different residential setting than their family home. Crisis management is not acceptable. We talked about that. Wrong way. Okay, we need to have day opportunities that they have a choice. How they spend their day. It's not one size fits all, and quite frankly, it shouldn't even be the same thing every day if they don't want it to be. Right? There needs to be choices. and New York State needs to appropriately fund it. So the days are over where the agencies can keep doing the right thing. Now, I'm not an agency person, right? I'm blessed by a lot of agencies, but I'm not an agency person. Sometimes I'm amazed at how they do it, right? How do they keep providing services when they're not getting reimbursed? But those days are gone. They're down to the, there's nothing left. And they want to do the right thing, they can't. They can't, because there's not the funding there. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to lay off people, which means the quality of care gets affected for our family members. So it really comes down to affecting us as well. So they need to appropriately fund it, right? And I have a mom. I've told this story in Albany. Her daughter, the only thing she could get her daughter was a Day Out Without Walls program, right? One staff, 3 individuals out in the community. One individual has a drop seizure. Staff does the right thing, gets on the floor to be with that person. The other individual one individual did the right thing, got scared, stayed right there. The third flew into the parking lot in Transit Road in Williamsville, right? Fortunately, 2 Good Samaritans, 2 senior citizens saw what was happening, and the grandfather, I'm assuming his grandfather, flew out after that person. But that didn't have to happen that way, did it? So that's not safe. And when the state asks us, how willing are you to take risks? I'm not taking any risks with my daughter. Now, there are some risks out there that people can take based on the need, based on the ability, but that situation should not happen. And we shouldn't have a catastrophe for something to be done about it. We talked about individuals who aren't able to work, right? They need safe, meaningful activities. They want to hang out with their peers. They need to be meaningful activities, not just put in a room, right? There needs to be community-based program, which I just talked about. There needs to be safety issues that are factored in there. And we need to have transportation that's safe and available. And that's always an issue. That's an issue regardless of where you are in the continuum of disabilities, because transportation is a hassle. So let's form another team. Sorry, I'm being cynical. But that's what we do. We form a team. We've got to solve these problems. And I heard, though, that Kirk Maurer was just successful at getting transportation to the DDSO out in West Seneca from Southgate Plaza. I don't know if many of you are familiar with it, but many of our self-advocates work out at the DDRO way out on East and West Road, and the NFTA cut off service. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short. Just got the word yesterday, victory, yay! I woke anybody up that was taking a snooze after lunch. So it just goes to show you, though, there are successes. And those successes we need to celebrate, we need to share, so that it encourages others so we can keep on moving, right? Because we are never going to give up. One size doesn't fit all, talked about that. Wrong way. We got to change this thing, because it goes in the wrong direction. There was a lot, I'm sure many of you were involved, a lot of activity about minimum wage and what that impact is for our direct support professionals, and quite frankly, the entire agency, because it hits everybody, as well as the families, right? So I say they need a fair wage, because minimum wage isn't good enough for the people that are taking care of individuals with health and disabilities. It's not good enough. You're putting, you're trusting your whole self with the person you love to somebody else. They should be compensated appropriately. And it's very difficult to understand how a governor can say, we're going to raise the minimum wage, and not think about the organizations that are 96% based on government funding, and not have a plan for that, right? And even the plan that they did come out with, which I'll tell you about, which is a lot of malarkey, but whatever. So here's the adjectives I talk about when I talk about direct support professionals. I'm very particular. I'm sure you find that amazing. So there's only certain people that I have helped me with Laura. Laura's, she's eligible for 30 hours a week. I can only find 10 hours. I can only staff 10, because there's not people out there that want to work for, lousy wages. The people that I do end up getting are people that I get through churches and colleges, and also that form a relationship with the family that love us, so they keep doing it, right? I have a girl that, when Laura's in middle school, her aide for summer school, she comes one night a month just because she wants to hang with Laura. So it's that kind of thing, but that's not acceptable, right? We need to be able to have this as a profession, because there's nothing more important than caring for people that can't care for themselves. So those are all our adjectives, and we love to use that slide. See? Up, okay. So, what do you need to do? What do you need to do? This is a quiz. I'm just sitting here. What do you need to do? Get involved. Yes, hooray, you win a brownie. But it's kind of stale right now. So, where am I? Okay. Get involved. Oh, you read the slide, you cheater. So, okay.
You get no vote. Get the vote.
What do we need? What families and individuals need to do? And what our agency professionals need to do is hook us up with those families and individuals, right? We're doing some work in both Buffalo and Rochester right now, getting word out to agencies, and we've templated an email, and we're asking agency executives to send it to the families saying, you need to get involved, blah, 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 and it would be great if you guys would also be willing to do that. Establish relationships. So from a family perspective, it's really important. Things get done because you have relationships. Things get done when you work cooperatively and collaboratively with people. So you can't always be pounding the table, right? Got to develop those relationships. Really important. And we tell our families, have good, positive relationships with your service coordination, with the agencies that serve you. If you have a problem, family members, don't talk to others about the problem. Go to the person in the agency that you're having an issue with. Because this negative energy doesn't work. It's not going to accomplish anything, right? Get it out there, figure it out, right? Have good, positive relationships with OPWDD staff. We have a very close relationship with Kurt Maurer and Kevin Pembroke and several other people in Region 1. They're great guys. They're trying to do their best. They share information. They work side by side with us. It's really important to have that kind of relationship with OPWDD. You don't have to like everybody, by the way, because I don't like everybody, but I like them. So, Cameron, shut up. So, legislators, you know what? Whether you're a family member, an individual, or an agency professional, you need to have a relationship with your legislator. You need to go and see him. You need to write a letter. You need to write to the governor. I have templates available. They're free today. And you need to tell the governor your story. Okay? Ask him to fund those programs that are so needed, that he made a promise to do, by the way. And I'll show you that quote. And then we have a big promotion right now engaging the community with media awareness. So we have a lot of letters to the editor that we've been working on, especially prior to the minimum wage information. But you know, we must never give up. We need to make the community involved, and we need to meet the needs. So when I go around and talk to other groups, I'd say you too can organize and develop a family group. So I encourage you to think about that in your agency and how it would work. It needs to be agency, you know, you could be agency sponsored, but you can't really define the agenda. It needs to be agency neutral. Could be a subset of Donnie Family Committee or whatever, but it needs to happen. You identify a leadership team, we have a core team. We have regular meetings once a month, right? Action oriented. It's not about a support group. We tell people right out of the gate, this is not a support group. This is about action-oriented, results-driven, because everybody's busy, so we're going to get things done. We always educate, provide useful information. We take, you know, a document that's this big, and we make it down to one document so it's family-friendly. And now we're in combination with other state groups, so that's good. Share information and resources, and speak with a common voice. The governor would like nothing more than for us to be divided. And we cannot be divided. And that's why the continuum of need is wide, and we need to advocate for the neediest to the person that needs the least need, but still has needs. It's very important, right? One size doesn't fit all, but we're all on the same team. Did that one. Okay, how to stay informed. So I have this Donnie, www.donnie.org. I'm going to show you the screen print. I don't have copies, but we can figure out how we can get them to you. There's a lot of great information on the Government Affairs page. Patrick, in fact, is the chair of Government Affairs for Donnie. Patrick, take a bow. Not much of a bow, but whatever. And then I know our email address, the volunteers, you know, it's very creative. DonnieFamilyCommittee@gmail.com. Can't forget it, right? So you can send us emails. And if you want to get on listserv. I have a sign-up sheet that I'll pass around. And this would provide you updates. There's not a lot of emails. There's one a month that advises the agenda of the meeting, and if we have specific advocacy actions, like when we were calling the governor's office on minimum wage or about budget, we send it out that way with specific instructions. So you're not going to get inundated, and we do not share your email address with anybody without your permission. Join our listserv for advocacy actions, and we have a Facebook page. Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, very important. There's a listserv that's so simple to get on, and you'll get regular updates about what's happening. So when there's a residential request report issued, you would get an email that says, this is issued, here's the link, and then you can read it. And I'll show you. So here's what anybody, you guys, well, oh my God. Sorry. Hey, can I go backwards? No, can't, gotta go all the way through. I must have went home or something. Not home literally, but home in the presentation. All the way to the back. I did the screen prints because I didn't think we'd have internet access. So if you go on to www.opwd.com or .gov, and you have this little thing here, sign up for OPWDD updates. If you don't do anything else when you leave this conference today, go home and do that. Click into it. All you do, click, right? Click and you get, not that, you get join our email list. And again, you do not get inundated with emails. You know, if you get one every other week, maybe that's a lot. When things are happening, you'll get emails. I encourage you to do that. It's your name, your email address. Boom, done. The other one up here, reports on transformation, I want to draw your attention to, right? So you see this click? I'd lift this thing, but I can't. But reports on transformation. If you click into that, then you'll have all those reports I mentioned earlier, the work settings report, the residential report, the transformation report, the front door report, they're all there. Click into them, they're PDF, you can read it, right? That's how you get informed. And hopefully here, it's not here yet, I checked, will be, as the detailed implementation plans come, you'll be able to see what they are. Any questions on that? Okay. So, next is the Donnie site. So this is a great site too, easy to do. I have the drop down under committees, and you click into family committee, that's us. So in government affairs, that's that. So again, pretty user friendly. Oops, that's the finale. I almost spoiled it for you. So when you click into either committee, you'll see all of the family committee stuff, our minutes, any letters to the editor that we've done. When I say we, I mean the family committee, not Barbara DeLong. There's many families that are involved and engaged. And then government affairs always has J.R. Drexilius, who's our lobbyist at Albany. He's always putting reports there. Patrick puts reports there. You can find out what's going on in Albany. It's a good venue to stay informed. Oh, what did I do here? What did I do wrong? Never mind, I'll fix it. No. Because I need you to see the whole page.
Hang on.
There we are. Our children are depending on you. That's my finale, right? So I will say to you, look at all these beautiful faces. Oh, here's the prettiest. This is Laura. Don't tell any other parents I said that. So that's Laura. But anyways, all of these individuals, and that's just a sample of the 130,000 people, right, that we serve, that you serve, and you serve well. And that you, because of you guys, that's why they're able to live a life that's full and out in the community. And that they can prosper and be happy, because there's nothing more important, right? But until we make sure that the state funds the programs, funds the agencies so they can stay open, and makes it appropriate, an appropriate wage so people want to pursue a career taking care of our loved ones, we haven't fixed it, right? So that's that, and then I'll leave you with the governor's quote. There you go. Just send him a letter and say, hey, by the way, do you remember this? So he talked about, not gutting the programs, right? And then when on the Olmstead report, he talked about people with disabilities have the right to receive services and supports in settings that do not segregate them from the community. It is a matter of civil rights. And what do I say? World according to Barbara DeLong, just so nobody else gets in trouble with the governor, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. And until we have a system that can make sure that all individuals are served in the way they deserve, we have not gotten our work done. And that's all I have for you today.